Hi, Chris here, and welcome back to my final review of Xiaomi's Mi Gaming laptop. This is the 2019 refresh. It's got 16 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, 512 gigabytes of storage, the NVIDIA RTX 2060. Now, the base model has the GTX 1660 Ti. Not a bad card, but I wanted the best card just to help boost performance because there's a big change now with the screen. They've gone and done away with the 60 Hertz panel they had on the previous two models. It's now 144 Hertz. It's a very good screen in here. We've got an Adobe RGB color gamut coverage here of 73%, sRGB of 97%, and a maximum brightness of 360 lux. It's a very good screen, matte coated, 1080p, and if you're running older games or you lower your settings, then with the RTX 2060 here at least, you can, hopefully most of the time, match the 144 refresh rate with 144 frames per second. But it really all depends on what type of games. You'll see later on with my tests here. So we've got a decent keyboard on here, but I do have a bit of a pet peeve with the column that they put here on the left. Now, I don't believe that you should mess with QWERTY layouts and just decide to add an additional column there with our macro keys. Go 5 macro keys that you can customize with the software that's on board. And the top button there is our fan turbo mode. So it just turns into an F18 afterburners, really, as you'll hear later on from a sample of the fan noise. It gets very loud, but it will cool it down very quickly if you needed to do that. But that is a good keyboard to type on. It has a 4-stage different backlight zones on there. 5-stage backlighting, but 4 different zones that you can customize if you're into your RGB keyboards. And overall, I did get a lot of typos with this keyboard to start out with of the first week, really. It took about, I would say, 6 or 5 days before I stopped getting the typos, and you're just having that extra row there. So I really wish that those keys were just above the keyboard. The touchpad is big, and it is really good. Very good finish to it, very good accuracy, very smooth. It supports Windows 10 gestures. And of course, gaming, you won't be using a touchpad, you'll be using a mouse, but when you use it as just a normal laptop, this is probably one of the best touchpads you'll find in a gaming laptop, because most gaming laptops just ignore, really, touchpads because they feel that our gamers aren't going to really use them anyway. But it's a good one. Palm rest is made out of plastic. Now for ports on the right-hand side, the left-hand side I should say, we've got 2 3.5mm audio in and out ports here, 2 USB 3s, and then an exit vent there. And on the right-hand side, now we've got a high-speed, ultra-high-speed card reader. This actually came in the change on the last gen model, and it's good to see. So if you're moving your video files from your SD cards, they're going to transfer over quite quickly if you, of course, using a whole high-speed card, that is. And another USB 3 port. So on the rear, another USB 3.2 again. So we've got 4 in total USB 3 ports, which is great. HDMI 2.0 spec. So if you wanted to run, say, a 4K monitor at 60 Hertz, you can do that. And then we've got gigabit LAN there as well, DC in for charging. And what is missing here? Well, we don't have a mini display port, and they removed the Type-C port. So the last year's model had a Type-C port on there, and even the first gen model, but they just ditched it for some weird reason. I don't know why. Now, I would have preferred to have seen Thunderbolt 3. That would have been great to have on here. So there's really one thing that is missing, is Type-C or Thunderbolt 3. On the underside of the Mi Gaming laptop, it's exactly the same as the previous model. So we have a very large intake grille here and these raised rubber feet, so plenty airflow. Now, if you are going to be removing the rear of this to add a 2.5-inch hard drive or SSD, don't forget there is actually one screw right here that is hidden away. So prying it off does take a bit of effort. And once you get that cover off, we've got access to the 2 RAM slots, DDR4. Here is our SSD. The wireless card is not upgradable. It's soldered onto the motherboard. But we can add a 2.5-inch spindle hard drive or SSD. Right here is the room for it, the bay and the connector. Or another M.2 NVMe or SATA 3 SSD, 22 by 80 size. And the cooling here, so we've got the 2 coolers with a lot of fins in there and 5 thermal transfer heat pipes. And it does do its job, as you see in this review. No thermal throttling, it doesn't overheat. So the cooling, definitely good here, but it is a little loud when gaming, as you'll hear later on in the video. So onto the performance of this laptop. It's very quick, But the 8th gen is about the same kind of speed CPU-wise as this. So the new i7-9750H is quite a disappointing release in terms of performance. It's only really marginally quicker than the last gen model CPU. So it will hold approximately, you can see here, bouncing around 3.6 to 3.7 across all 6 cores when really pushed hard with something demanding like Cinebench, which I'm running in the background. Now you can undervolt a little, which I've done right here. This won't really do much for thermals, but it might help hold just slightly higher core clocks when you are stressing the CPU. So you can see here, Cinebench, that's just finished up. In fact, that came out a little bit lower than expected. You're getting around, as I showed in the first video, about 1200 CB here, which really is about the same speed as mentioned as the 8th gen chip. So that's not a performance increase. But what is our GPU performance. So that is now up, of course, with the RTX 2060. Here's pass mark. So if you're interested in those pass mark scores, this is one of the benchmarks I didn't show in the first video that people were asking for. And these are some of the benchmarks that I did. So Time Spy 3D Mark, good score, 6,335. Fire Strike Extreme, closing up, well, 7,500. That is very good. If it gets up, graphics score close to 8,000, then there's a really good score for a laptop. And you can overclock the GPU a little bit, okay? I've done some testing, but I'll show you now with superposition benchmark as well. Sorry, this is Geekbench 5. I wanted to check on this one. Again, no real difference, and I did show Geekbench 5 as well. But all in all, this is a very fast laptop. So onto superposition here, benchmark. So this is the original result. So 3,748. And if you do a slight GPU overclock, which is about 80 megahertz more on the core and 800 megahertz on the RAM, this is the difference there. So you can squeeze a little bit of additional performance out of the RTX 2060 with its 6 gigabytes of RAM. It is a potent GPU, and the thermals, I wanted to talk about that now more towards the beginning, that the thermals are very good. You can see here that the GPU gets up to around about 65 degrees maximum. I will throughout this video be monitoring the thermals, by the way. Anyway, CPU will hit a maximum of about 83. So this is good. We're not running into any thermal throttling. It's not like the Lenovo Legion, the Y740 that I reviewed. That one maxed out at 97 for just a second degrees. So it does get very hot. But no, the cooling is good in this laptop, and you won't really have any problems. So the SSD, very quick here. It is a Toshiba drive. This is the 512 gigabyte SSD model that I've got here. Of course, the highest spec. So good speeds, very, very good there. And that is not going to be holding you up at all. And of course, you can expand upon that storage if you want to. So this is the best Cinebench result that I've got. So close to 1200 CB. Okay. I don't know why I only got about 1,000 just before. It does vary from time to time. So charging it, it's going to take about 2 hours and 40 minutes to fully charge this laptop. And then my battery life figures, these are just some of the testing that I've been doing over the couple of weeks here. So Chrome, you're going to get around 4 hours max, bit under actually for Chrome use on the integrated Intel Ultra HD 630 it's got on there. Video only about 4.5 hours with a lower brightness. And if you're gaming, 1 to 1.5 hours. It's only a 55 watt hour battery. So the battery life is quite disappointing. So onto some gaming performance now that I know a lot of you wanted to see in the first video. And we'll have a look at the thermals as well again, and also fan noise once I have gamed for a bit. Yeah, one of the cons of this laptop that when you're gaming, the fans are pretty much almost 100%, and I'll give you a sample of them now, but you can probably even hear it now as I'm talking. It's really, really loud, and it's quite annoying. So let's have a look at the thermals. It does feel quite hot to the touch, the keyboard. So just in the middle here, I've noticed temperatures of almost 46 degrees. So it is warm to the touch, and on the underside, it's actually a lot cooler than this. So this is the hottest point it's really going to get to, is the top of the keyboard. You can see there, 44 degrees. The palm rest, that is cool. That remains always about 24, 22 degrees. So we have those two downwards firing speakers. They're actually very loud, as you'll hear from this clip. They've got a little bit of bass to them. It would have been nice if we had a sub, but I think most people will be happy with the performance of these speakers. Loudness, definitely there, and overall, they're not really that bad, these speakers.
Hey, hey! Get down.
And here's our front webcam. So I thought I would record away from my studio at your typical kind of location, which is at home. And you can see the quality is not amazing. There's a lot of noise and grain to it. The mics do sound good. There's a bit of echo. That's because this room doesn't have any furniture in it. It's basically empty, and that's why. Okay, so I'll quickly recap here. I don't want to drag the ending out. That this, I think, is a solid gaming laptop. Very, very good build quality. A hugely improved screen. Got the 144 Hz. Depends on what games and titles you're playing, whether you can actually match 144 frames per second to the screen. There's no G-Sync on here, but that's a good thing because the battery life and the battery capacity is actually very, very small, 55 watt hours. So if we had G-Sync, we'll be forced to use, if they didn't allow us to disable it, that is, to use, of course, the RTX 2060 on here, and then you only get like an hour and a half of battery life, and that would be really bad. But it still is bad battery life. So 4 hours max, really watching video content on the integrated GPU with a lower brightness isn't wonderful at all. It is a little heavy, 2.7 kilos. The column that they put here with our macro keys is to me a bit annoying. You will have typos to start with, but once you get used to it, it is a fantastic keyboard. The touchpad as well, really, really good touchpad. So if you're into good touchpads, and most gaming laptops don't really have good ones, then this is probably one of the best ones out there that you'll find. Now the webcam quality, it's okay, it's not amazing. Fan noise when gaming is a little on the loud side. So all up, the huge increase in performance we're getting now with the RTX 2060, at least in the top spec model, is welcomed. But Intel's CPU bump from 8th to 9th gen with the 9750H is truly disappointing. Even though we've got 400 megahertz more clock speeds, it really doesn't equate to anything in real world use. It's about 3-4% tops, and that is disappointing. So hopefully the 10th gen will be a lot better. Now it doesn't come with Windows 10 in English, but it is easy enough to just do a whole new install of Windows, and the CD key that's in the BIOS will pull through. So as long as you install Windows 10 Home, you'll be all right. You won't run into any problems there. Or you can upgrade to Windows 10 Pro, which I did, and that then allowed me to just install English and keep all the stock software. So overall, it is a great gaming laptop. It is, okay, a little expensive, of course, but 1,300 euros when I look at the local market, you can't get the spec for here. Not the RTX 2060, not the 16 gigabytes RAM and the top-end CPU, 144 Hz screen. Will be about 1,500, 1,600 here. So it is a bit cheaper if you import one of these, but of course beware of import taxes, and you won't have local warranties and things. So thank you so much for watching my review of Xiaomi's Mi Gaming laptop. Bye for now.